Thanks, Tim, and thanks to Share Cafe for the opportunity to speak. Sensor's a brand new type of company to the ASX, but not new to North American markets. We're a combination mining technology and exploration group. If you can go to the next slide. Just the usual disclaimers, and I might jump to the next slide. As Tim mentioned, we listed about 8 weeks ago. We've been working for, I guess, more than a decade together to gather the information that we use to be able to pull together our AI machine learning technology. We're pretty tightly held. We do have a number of equity partners from our clients that have come on board with BHP Ventures, Deutsche Rohstoff, which is a German oil, gas, lithium and battery minerals company, and also our partners in DGO Gold, another ASX I guess gold success story that's been backing our technology and development for the last few years at both the exploration and at the parent co level. You can go to the next slide. So what we've set SensOre up to do is to really deal with some of the big issues that have been coming up in the global economy. The two themes that are driving our approach are the energy transition, the need to find more battery and critical minerals, the copper, nickel, lithium, cobalt, etc., that is sorely in demand for the energy transition from hydrocarbons away to battery, electric vehicles, etc. We also know that exploration rates for these key commodities for the Australian economy are falling. We've found a very good job of being able to find the stuff close to surface or near major mining centres at present. But undercover in complex geology and new environments, that's where the next generation of Australian mines are going to be found. And it's going to rely on deep technology, AI and machine learning to be able to enhance what geologists are doing to be able to discover those new deposits. We're also riding a trend, I guess, with the recent geopolitical issues globally about onshoring of rare earth critical mineral components. The domestic markets for North America, Europe and Australia, they understand that they've been purchasing a lot of these commodities from more challenging jurisdictions, and disruptions to supply recently, particularly with Ukraine and Russia, mean that we need to find more of these things close to home. And there's been significant, I guess, announcements by the US and by the Australian governments to support battery critical mineral onshoring in both countries. If we can go to the next slide. Well, I mentioned a bit before that we combine mining technology and exploration. It means that we work with others, we generate our own income from our services and the technology that we apply. We also get some unique insights into those new exploration areas that are available, and we peg those ourselves and work with other parties to be able to unlock that value. So we have 2 streams of revenue associated with that, and it provides us a unique opportunity to give people who invest in mining technology exposure to that exponential upside that can come from a major exploration discovery for one of these key commodities. Next slide. So I just wanted to delve this time in this presentation a bit more into the technology, a bit deeper. Our approach is to leverage recent advances, cutting edge technology that have come through from machine learning and artificial intelligence. And this is pattern recognition largely. It's about finding and developing a global data set of what it takes to make a major mine or be able to find a major deposit. And that means analysing tens of thousands of deposits for gold, copper, nickel, lithium, etc. Understanding what they look like at depth in different locations at different ages, etc. So really unpacking what the fingerprint is of a major discovery and understanding all the types of information, all of the key indicators that can lead us to knowing not only that there's an exciting piece of terrain there, but that it's going to become a major, potentially billion-dollar value creator for those companies. We used data sets from geology, geophysics, and geochemistry. These are the main ingredients that lead to the discovery within those areas. But we do some pretty novel things with it. I mean, we use the advances that have come through from a computer being able to learn to read and be able to understand images, etc., to train it to be a geologist. We get them to read reports, to be able to ingest information from maps and turn those into quantitative layers and be able to see how those observations, that the distilled knowledge of 100 years of geology can be used quantitatively within the algorithm to be able to see the patterns that lead to a deposit. We also utilize aspects of machine learning to be able to infill missing data. Geochemical information, surface sampling and drilling is very sparse in many areas, but you need to be able to use the prediction, the ability to anticipate and fill in data that's missing from different areas of the machine learning advances in those areas. And so once we've built up the full fingerprint using some of these novel techniques, then we go into our search space, which is our data cube. And if we can go to the next slide. The data cube is basically a digital twin of the Australian continent, divided up on 400 by 400 metre cells and populated with over 2,500 layers of information. That's all the variables that come out of geology, geophysics and geochemistry. And we use the information we have to infill missing information to be able to build up the first time total data set predictions across the continent for that information. Just in WA alone, 8.5 million surface samples, 280 million dual assay intervals. This is on a scale that's never been attempted before to be able to pull together this information. Some of these data sets are available in public repositories, but unlocking them, cleaning them, ingesting them has been beyond the realms of any company, even the majors, until recently. You want to go to the next slide? So together with these, we pull together our product suite. We have companies that pay us to be able to put add their information into the data cube, be able to look at it and be able to interact with that information, to be able to run some of the new machine learning tools, not only to enhance their own exploration, but be able to target and get a greater understanding of that information. So that gives us a good revenue profile going forward. And if we can go to the next slide. And be able to pull that together and use it predictively in our suite of prospectivity maps. And so this is a new way of being able to examine everyone's tenements, be able to understand for investors like yourselves what the prospects are for companies you've invested in, being able to access that information, see where the drill programs are being planned and be able to understand the information and geology that's being able to drive to those locations. So we've had interest from clients outside of the exploration space to be able to inform the decision making around investments and the prospectivity of the companies in which they're invested in. We're just going through a new release at the moment, incorporating all of the geology and geophysics available in WA and the extension of that to South Australia for gold and copper exploration. Next slide. After pulling together the training data set, the understanding of what the digital fingerprints are of known deposits and creating our digital search space, we can use that, as I've talked about last couple of slides, to work with others to generate revenue for ourselves. But sometimes we see within those wonderful images that we pull up, the new areas, the deep undercover that people haven't been able to target in before. We see these diamonds, these gems of targets, and we acquire them ourselves. And here we're just looking at some of the nickel targets that we've been able to bring under the SensOre banner. The Aurelia project is a flagship project of ours, which we're farming into a Chalice joint venture with SensOre owning 70% of that stake. It's a very large geophysical nickel predicted anomaly, but Chalice is obviously focused on the Julimar trend, but our system loves this deep targets out in the Nullarbor, particularly our Munera, Jenkins and Scorpion targets, which are exciting base metal plays and that fall out of the artificial intelligence that we've used to identify these targets. Next slide. We can do the same for lithium. We're doing that with Deutsche Rohstoff, which is a company that is building downstream processing capacity in Germany for lithium processing. They're seeking feed from key markets like Western Australia. We've been able to process and be able to impute the geochem for lithium right across southern WA and recently incorporating the Pilbara and the northern regions to open up new areas of lithium potential that we've been able to peg and acquire. Next slide. all this information we're pulling together and working to create a SaaS-based platform for customers and for ourselves. This means that instead of working with dozens of clients that we do at the moment, we can expand that to hundreds and potentially thousands of clients here in Australia and overseas. Working with CGI, which is the global tech leader, to be able to develop our commercial readiness and platform components that mean we can remove some of the human elements that are still involved within the process and process that information quicker and faster than we've ever been able to do before. Next slide. A couple of the benefits that we're able to pull together from this approach. We do have a significant ESG benefit for the sector. One of the results is more strategic drilling, more surgical drilling, less holes in the ground for better results. It means we can reduce the amount of hydrocarbons that are used in exploration, drilling, etc., and that potential. Disturbing less land. Land access is becoming more challenging with native title and other aspects there. So we want to make sure that we can reduce our footprint as much as we can as an industry. And of course, the products that we're working on are the tech metals of the future that we're looking to receive and sustain. I will just go to one more slide. I might have to skip through a couple here because I'm running out of time. We do have an extensive portfolio of gold that we've been developing with DGO and ourselves. We've got drilling programs underway continually at present, picking up 6 of our targets in a really aggressive 2022 program. We've got great gold hits at some of our projects. And if we go to the next slide, talking about here, we're just south of Eaglehawk Target, is just south of the Mulga Bill discovery. The Great Boulder Resources has been working on. Our system loves the extension of that trend to the south. It also loves the Mulga Bill project itself. We're drilling that at present. Next slide. And next slide. So just finally, Tim's in the background there. We've got a really unique business model that combines technology and exploration and development opportunities. You get exposure not only to our tech side, but also to our portfolio of nickel, copper, lithium, and gold targets. We work with the majors. We work with small companies as well. BHP is a big supporter. Our SAS platform is under development and we're expanding globally. So look forward to being able to talk to you in the future and being able to demonstrate how we are transforming and disrupting mineral exploration in Australia and globally. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Richard. Really interesting business model. There's a question here first up, which is probably critical to the whole business model, is what's the source of the data?
Yeah. Many sources. I guess in Australia, we are blessed with really large public data sets, the companies reporting that information to the government. It is almost unusable in that format. If you imagine 70,000 different company submissions in different formats going into WA, you need to develop computing capacity to remove the human element to be able to ingest all that information, and we've done that. So we use that information. We get client information. We can crawl information from ASX listings, ASX postings, etc., and be able to ingest that information within the system. We're growing that proprietary data layers all the time. We use bespoke data layers that we can offer within that system. So it is a learning approach. The more we can add, the more it benefits. And we know now that in the next generation and the next runs, the AI will learn, improve, and do better and better, as it has in every other industry it's disrupted.
And just with that data collection and the AI technology, does it, will it work in overseas jurisdictions, Indonesia, Africa? Can you work with hydrocarbons, for example?
Yeah, it is agnostic as to commodities. So you can train it on, we have 74 different elements and metals from the process within our geochem layers, and obviously geology and geophysics can be trained on any of those commodities. It does work, I guess, initially it works closer where you've got good data sets. So it will have the most advantages in Australia, Canada, parts of Scandinavia. And really it's about refreshing the exploration potential of known mining jurisdictions when you're stepping from the near mine environment into undercover or more complex geology in those regions. And really there's a lot more to be discovered inside of the head frame of the mine. That's the best place to go looking, rather than taking something that is completely left field, away from infrastructure and elsewhere. So we won't be going to West Africa. We won't be going to parts of Asia just yet. And there's a hell of a lot to keep us busy with just in our own backyard in WA.
And so you've kind of got a dual model here where you find some data that's very exciting, for want of a better word, then you essentially take a proprietary position in that mine. And is the plan to JV that sort of asset and keep that on the books and then look for the next?
Yeah, the scale of upside from discovery is huge, and the investment that we put into our data is equivalent to what other mining companies just put into drilling. So it's not cheap, it's not easy. There are a lot of barriers to other people doing that. We want to be remunerated with equity, royalties, etc., for the investments that we put in place, and that's why we'll look to work with other companies. Those nickel targets, these are big geophysical anomalies. They're going to be, priorities for mid-tier and major companies to partner with. And we're excited about the people who are keen to work with us on nickel and copper targeting. Gold, we like gold. Gold's what the system was developed for. We'll focus our exploration efforts within gold and the commodities that we're targeting. We've got good gold intercepts on 3 of our projects already.
And just quickly, in terms of the subscription model for mining companies listed in Australia, what's the sales process look like, and how does that work from a subscription perspective?
Yeah, data is key. Data is what we do. With the platform we're about to release with CGI and Unico, and at providing them access to all of the information, not only the stuff that we've cleaned and ingested, but also the approaches we've used to impute that missing data and give us unique views of the continent. That'll be a subscription model where companies will be able to access that, be able to manipulate their own data, utilize our algorithms to be able to clean and uplift any data that they choose to add to the system, and give some pretty unique visualizations that I hope investors will be seeing released on the ASX platform in coming years, which provide much more insight and granularity than some of the images you see in the gravity and magnetics that are popular with companies today.
Great, Richard. That's all we have time for. Really interesting story. There's a lot more questions. If you have time, you can answer those online, but we'll follow up again. I think it's a really interesting story.
Thanks, Tim. A pleasure.
Thanks, Richard.